Well, good morning. We're looking here at Proverbs 23, and today we're going to talk about something that everybody enjoys talking about, money. So let's read verses 4 and 5 in Proverbs chapter 23. Now, you recall we're looking through the 30 different sayings, and really these are not necessarily written by Solomon, but these are rather a compilation of proverbs that have already been said and whatnot. So let's read the seventh saying on verses 4 and 5. It says, "Do not toil to acquire wealth, be discerning enough to desist. When your eyes light on it, it is gone. For suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven." So here he gives a command, really, in verse 4 to not toil to acquire wealth, but rather be discerning enough to assist. So let's just kind of talk about what that means. First of all, he says, don't work, don't seek to live your life and make it your life's ambition to acquire wealth. The idea here is acquiring it so that you're able to just stockpile it. And so he's not saying don't work so that you don't have money to eat and live and have a house and do things, but rather he's saying don't make it your life's goal, your life's ambition, just to stockpile and have money. Rather, he says, be discerning enough to desist. The idea of desisting means to stop. So really what he's saying here is work for a point in time in which you have enough money that no longer really becomes your goal to earn money, but rather to give money, to do something with money. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But notice what he says in verse 5. He says, when your eyes light on it, it is gone. For suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven. I think about how I used to live near water. And one of the things we would do is we would see ospreys, and when you would say, "Hey, look, there's one," or whatever, you would look around and you would see it, and as soon as you would see it, it would be gone. Or we would see ducks, and here would come a duck flying in, and it would take you a few seconds as you're looking around. Oh, there it is. As soon as you see it, and then eventually it flies off, and you could no longer see it. So it would take you a second to find it, and then finally, after you found it, boom, you can see it for a brief amount of time, and it's gone. So it's kind of like this. Don't toil to acquire wealth. It's going to take you a while to acquire wealth. You start working when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and maybe by the time you're in your 50s or 60s, you finally have it, and then boof, eventually it's gone. And he says, listen, it is a fleeting thing. And we need to have the right mentality about that. Notice what a good passage is found in 1 Timothy chapter 6. So I'm going to read a couple verses from this, verses 9 and 10 and 11, and then also jump down to 17 and 19. I'm going to just kind of read through these, not make a whole lot of comments about them, something that you can maybe study a little bit later on. In 1 Timothy 6, 9 and 10, 9 through 11, he says, "But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmless desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. But as for you, O man of God, flee these things." So what should we flee? Flee the love of money. Flee the desire to become rich. But rather, he tells us what to pursue. To pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, steadfastness, and gentleness. This is what he tells us to pursue, to go after those things, not to continue seeking to be wealthy. If you jump down to verse 17 and 19, he tells the rich what they are supposed to do. He says, as for the rich in this present age, So he doesn't say, listen, you're sinful if you are rich, but he says, look, there are going to be people who have money and there are going to be people who do not. And then there's the vast majority of people who are kind of in the middle somewhere. He says, but as for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but rather on God, who richly provides us with everything. So he says, if you have money, that's great, that's fine, but don't set your heart on that. He tells us because you need to set your heart on God. Don't be haughty about it. And he says, it is God who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. So enjoy the things that God has given us. Now, here's what he says in verse 18 is so important. They, now who's the they? The they are the rich in this present age. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is truly life. So think about this. He says, listen, they're to be good, they're to store up for themselves, not money, but rather store up for themselves treasures on a good foundation for the future, one that doesn't burn and isn't given away, but rather it is something for the life to come, which is truly life. True life is not making money, keeping it for yourself, and that's it. True life, rather, is perhaps having money, giving and sharing with others. There are some people that I know that are very good at doing these things. And there are some people that are very bad at doing these things. They don't have a lot and they're not giving you anything. They're keeping what they have, and they will, if they could, they would take from little kids. And here what we see is when you know what Jesus has done for you, he was rich and he became poor. It should be a motivation for us to utilize these things, to live for something bigger and greater than ourselves. So the overall point here is not to toil to acquire wealth. There are things that are going to live and be lasting for eternity. And that's why he tells us to pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, steadfastness, and gentleness. You know, as I do this, I think so many people got up this morning to go to work. So many people will get up on Monday and Tuesday and so on and so forth and go to work to pursue money. And that's a good, righteous thing. We're supposed to work. But we pursue sometimes those goals so that we can make more money, make more money, make more money. And I wonder, even in my own heart, where he says, I want you to pursue righteousness and godliness, faith and love. Do I really pursue those things individually with the same tenacity, the same drive that we have to pursue money? These are some interesting things to ponder, to take before the Lord, and to ask the Lord to help us to glorify him. May we be people who pursue the Lord and are happy, joyful, content with him, take the things that he has given us and use them for his glory. I hope this is a challenge for you, and may the Lord richly bless you today.